So hello there, my name's Simon, one of the team here at OSIOS, and this little introduction will be walk you through the critical features of the OSIOS platform. Okay, now of course we're making changes to the platform continually, but at the time of doing this video, these are the features that are currently available. So at the very heart of the reason we invented OSIOS is when we realised that although there are lots of project management platforms on the market, in fact there's a new one every day it seems, all of them, and literally all of them, have been created to help software developers. And whilst that may sound like a good thing, actually that's the problem. The problem is that none of them have actually been designed for the client, and it's the client that needs to pay the bill. So perhaps it's no wonder that 51% of clients are actually cancelling their software projects before they even get completed. So we really want to sort of tackle that. And what clients tell us they want is they want simplicity, they want transparency, and they want it all under one roof. And so that's what we've designed here. So what we identified is that there's 5 critical tools or features that we need to provide to help the client go from beginning to the end of the project. So basically an end-to-end project experience. So the dashboard we're looking at here has got a number of different projects on the go. We can see a few there. We can see how happy or sad our clients are, which is a very useful information. Any upcoming milestones, any unread messages, etc. And a nice little preview or icon representing the project that we are working on. Now with a project, one of the very first things we need to do is actually describe what are the requirements. And there's hundreds of different ways people do this, but the best way, we believe, is actually to do it via web form. So we built this project scope form into the OSIOS platform. You or your client can complete that. You can do that face-to-face, you can do that over a Skype call, or you can just send them an email and ask them to complete the scoping or the brief form. There they enter, a working project name, and as much details of the project as they can, who it's for, what are the critical features, if there's any branding requirements, fonts, logos, if they need to upload any files, etc. All of those can be loaded into this requirements page. And that's great, and to be honest, you could do that a number of ways. But where this is really powerful is when later on in the project somebody makes a change. And it's called development for a reason, right? Things do change, that's the whole point. And if you or your client makes a change, then to the brief, it's shown here, and although it's not on the screen here, it will actually be highlighted in yellow. And that way everybody can see what the change is, and everybody can click on the form here and go back to a previous version of the brief. So we're currently viewing the current version, but we could go back to a previous state of the brief. Now the whole purpose of this is we remove any potential for disputes. Your client can no longer say in the future, well, Fred, that requirement was always part of the original scope, and whereas normally you'd have to dig through all your emails and messages to try and find if it was, and even if you are able to achieve that, it takes a huge amount of time, it's frustration, and actually can lead to a difficult conversation because you and your client are actually on opposite sides. Then what you do is just say, well, Mr. Client, if you can ask you just to click into the scope tab, and we can, you can check there any changes during the project. So all the change requests are really clearly labelled, they're date stamped, we know who made those changes and when. Okay, so that's the scoping tab. Next thing we want to look at is the chat feature. Now chat feature, perhaps as the name suggests, is where a majority of your conversation is going to take place. You can create what we call rooms. You can have one room where you and your client are discussing the project. You might have another room where you and your internal team are discussing the project without your client being able to see that conversation. You might have another room where you're discussing a project with maybe an external company. It might be an illustrator or a video company or whoever it might be. Create as many rooms as you like, add as many people to all those rooms as you wish, and only the people invited into those rooms can actually see and contribute to the discussion. So I think that's very simple sort of analogy, and that's why we call them rooms. Now you can also share files and things like that very easily. So if you've got, I don't know, maybe you use Dropbox or use Evernote or other tools, you want to add a file from there, that's very easy to do. We can see in a little video here someone's adding a file from their Dropbox account, and that's great. But we can also annotate those files. So here we're drawing an arrow, we're adding a little message to a particular file. This saves a huge amount of time. Sometimes you add a file and it's got one small error or mistake, one small change. You can just draw over the top of it to make that change. You can also add audio notes, and what we're doing right now on the screen here is actually adding an audio note, and we can just, once it's recorded, we can just add that, and that audio note will be added just as a file into that room. So really simple features there, but incredibly powerful, and I can't tell you how much time that is going to save you in your projects. What we find is that sometimes text works really well, but sometimes audio works really well, and they work sort of differently. If you're discussing a design, perhaps it's quite a complex point of view or point, sometimes that's better done as an audio than could ever be achieved in a piece of text. And we can also create meetings. You can do live video meetings, you can share your screen, all the function you could possibly imagine. So if you have ever used GoToMeeting or Skype, then you can turn off your GoToMeeting contract, you can save your money there, you can say wave goodbye to bad Skype meetings where no one can hear you, as I experienced earlier today, and have very professional meetings. Now we actually have a third-party company that provides this functionality for us. It's basically the team that was behind WebEx, so we have a very significant platform behind here, so it's very robust. It's a fully featured service. You can share your whole screen or just part of your screen. You can include audio, you can do video recordings, you can annotate live during your meetings. Everything you want to do with video meetings, we've got it covered, including recordings. And again, just like the audio clips, if you wish, we can record those meetings and add those into the project. Incredibly powerful tool. If you do weekly Scrum calls, or you have maybe a design meeting with your client, then the ability to record that meeting and add it is very profound. So move over to the Design tab. Now design is a very critical element of your project. If a project does go down the toilet, and 70% chance that it's going to be because of the design phase. Now we can see the little visual here, we can actually add visuals to your projects and they get displayed within the device. We're actually seeing a mobile app project here, and we can see there's different visuals that's been added to this project. We also see a history of those visuals. So the visuals might start off as just a simple wireframe, and over time that visual's improved, and we can see that the evolution. It also means that we can go back to a previous version if we need to. Now what's even more important is we can actually create mock-ups here. That means we can click on a visual and we can actually create a link. I think we can see that here. So here we're creating a link. We can draw a button around an element that's going to behave like a button, set the page that it's going to refer to, and if that action applies to several pages, we can do that as well. And we can build these different buttons together. And then you or your client can just hit on the play tool, and you can actually see how this app is going to perform all the way from here. We're actually seeing it, how it appears in the App Store. Then we'll see how it appears maybe on your device's desktop. And then you can actually click through the app. Remember, at this stage, you've not done any coding, or not necessarily done any coding whatsoever. Your client will be able to see the project at an incredibly early stage and allow them to give you critical feedback before you get too far in terms of coding. Again, your clients will absolutely love it, I promise you. Again, we like to think all our tools are very simple to use, but very powerful and profound tool. And if I may, best business advice or approach here is you want to design your projects first at least in the most part, before you go into the development. So this allows that to happen, and your client can actually kind of test drive your early assumptions and ideas about this solution before you get too heavy into actually coding the solution. So that's the design phase. Next phase we're going to take a look at is the prototypes. So prototypes is, when you've moved on, you've actually done code, and you're actually sharing files. Now, we're actually building some integration with third-party solutions. We're in discussions with various companies at the moment, including TestFlight, and we're hoping to create a very sort of seamless prototype tool for you in the very near future. Right now, it's just an area where you can share files. And again, you can track different files, and you can add comments against those uploads. So if you're uploading a prototype and you say, well, this has XYZ complete, but this time don't test ABC, you can just add that little note. It's very, very clear to all, and again, it's all date stamped, and no one can query what happened when at a later time. Now we move on to tracking. Now, of course, you want to track the progress of a project throughout. And we've got some nice little dials here, or kind of infographic visuals here, to show exactly where we are in that project at any time. So in this particular project, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different phases. You can create and add phases as you need. And under a phase, you have milestones. You're likely to have multiple milestones for a phase. And under a milestone, you will then have tasks. You can create as many tasks, many milestones, etc. as you wish. Now, in addition to that, if you wish, you can actually add effort to your tasks. So, maybe against one phase you might have 10 milestones. One milestone you think it's going to take you 100 hours to complete, and the other 9 milestones are going to take an hour to complete each. You enter in that effort, and effort can be measured in man hours, man days, story points, or really any value you like, as long as you keep that value consistent. And then over the course of time during the project, when you mark a milestone as complete, then this will see that, and it will mark off the proportionate amount of effort has been completed. So we end up with a very powerful, but again, simple tool to show us exactly where we are in the project. So we can see at a glance here, actually we're approaching the completion of the plan phase. We've actually just started the design phase, but we've still got quite some way to go with the project. So again, a very, very powerful tool here. And Perform is a separate tab. Now this tab is only viewable by you. Everything I've shown you until now is viewable by your client unless you deem it unsuitable for them for whatever reason. But the Performance tab is really a a company level dashboard. So you can see how long your projects are taking on average. You can see how one project manager is perhaps performing against another. You can see what is the mood like for your client against those staff. So again, very valuable information to know. This is a very unique view, only available to OSIOS users. This shows us where projects are, and even if they are in the future, we can see where they're coming up, and who's going to be doing each project, or who's the lead project manager on those projects. We can even see what the phases are looking like and get an idea of timeline when those phases are complete. This helps us book in future work. It also helps us see where bottlenecks might be, where we've got a lot of projects overlapping. That might be a difficult period, and it gives a lot of information in a simple view. Now, when a project is complete, a very important thing to do, which I know a lot of businesses neglect from doing this. I know from past experience that we were actually guilty of this. We don't always get the feedback from an exit survey from our customers. And that's really, really important. Now, I know once a project is complete, you usually got to rush on to the next project as quick as possible, because they're the next paying customer and you need to get working with them. But actually, the customer who's just leaving you has an awful lot of important information that you really need to get your hands on. So once you mark a project as complete, a very short survey is sent to them. They can complete that survey if they choose to, and they hit send. You get sent that information. Of course, no one else gets that information, only you can see the reply. Now, over the course of time, after you've done several projects, we collate the data from that and we show that in this little company level dashboard. And again, you can see where you're performing well. Maybe there's an area that there's room for improvement, but you have that data to show you, and that's very, very valuable. We also have extensive integrations. We currently have integrations with 41 leading service providers in our space, and of course that number is always increasing. We're always adding to that number. So if you're using tools like Jira, Bugherd, Airbrake, and a whole range of other tools, that's totally fine. You can just include those conversations inside your OSIOS platform and keep those conversations close to hand, not having to change platforms all the time. So that's pretty much it. Just one last thing which I always forget to say, you can rebrand the entire platform as your own. So where I showed you all those screens with the OSIOS logo on the top left-hand side, you can just go into your settings tab, add your own logo, and then effectively brand the entire platform as your own. And we know that's important for you guys. So that's a little overview of OSIOS. If you do wish to have some one-to-one training, that's totally fine. We're totally able to provide that for you. Also, just contact us. You can just contact me directly. My name's Simon, simon@osios.net. Just send me an email, simon@osios.net, and we'll get that training set up for you and get you on the right track as soon as possible. If you are moving a project midway for a project, that's totally fine, and we'll totally support you achieving that. But also need to have a discussion with you and need to get some assets from you. It might be some messages, you might have some visuals, maybe your scope, requirements document, and then we can load that in for you so you can sort of seamlessly move from perhaps your existing project management environment over to OSIOS super smoothly. Okay, we help you with all those stages in between. Okay, so it's a pleasure speaking with you. Hope that's been of value to you. Do contact us with any questions, and I hope to speak with you again soon.